What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and it is Tuesday, so it's time for another Top 10. As promised last week, this week will be another Artificer-based video. However, we'll be talking about magic items that are for other classes that fit for the Artificer. So if you want to see more specifics around what kind of do's and do nots we're going to have for this video, stay tuned. So somebody came down to visit for this part of the video. So Adam, go over there, say hi to everybody. Everybody else say hi to Adam. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you before the specifics about the returning sponsor for today's video, our good friends at RPG Stories. Now, I did a full video on RPG Stories Kickstarter and everything to expect, and there's a lot of really awesome stuff here. But as you can see, there is still 11 days left. So if you want to get in on this now, it's not too late. As you can see, if we convert things back to pounds, they're at 45,000 pounds raised. And I just wanted to let you know that once they hit that 60K pound mark, that is a big unlock stretch goal. Over 1,000 different models added to the game, more customization options, character sheets being imported. So that is a very big upgrade that you will be able to get to anybody who backed it. So if you haven't backed yet and you're considering it, there is a specific tracking link that will be at the top of the video description, as well as a pinned comment. So if you want to get in, now is a great time to do so before things close out. It will also be available on Steam, and backers will have early access to this before anybody else does. So thank you to RPG Stories for sponsoring this video. Now again, talking about the specifics for the Artificer for the purposes of this video, again, Artificers eventually gain access to, similar to, I think the Thief Rogue has this ability as well, where they can have access and they basically ignore requirements for attunement, whether that be race, alignment, or class type. So primarily what we're going to focus on here mostly is things that have class restrictions. The other thing I wanted to point out from this is, as per usual, like we do with all of these videos, we're not going to be talking about legendary magic items. We're not going to be talking about anything consumable. Not that there's really any consumable attunement items, but we won't be talking about those. So it'll be an interesting set of videos, but the other thing that you have to consider when something might jump to your mind and say, "Ooh, why isn't that on the list?" I had to go through and take a look at all of these and make sure that the way things were worded weren't about a specific class. Because there are a lot of magic items out there that when you get them, especially the newer ones added in Tasha's Cauldron, that it will say things like, it will add a bonus to the spell save DCs of your bard spells. And obviously we're considering you being just going all in Artificer, not multi-classing. Because again, if you're getting this as an item as an Artificer and it says like it increases the spell save DC or spell attack rolls of your bard spells, that doesn't really do anything for you. So I had to go through and pick and choose items that were useful and didn't do things, right, if it gives you an additional use of your channel divinity, the item doesn't grant you channel divinity. That would come from your class feature. So we had to pick items that would be useful for the Artificer to have, but then also by nature, again, all of these are going to be attunement magic items as well. But again, useful to the Artificer, but not so specific that you wouldn't be able to use a large portion of the features because they're tied to a specific class or race. Number 10. Nature's Mantle. Now, this is higher on the list because, again, similar to what we talked about, that first ability of it is unusable by the Artificer, right? You can use this cloak as a spellcasting focus for your Druid and Ranger spells, but the second part I thought was useful. While you are in an area that is lightly obscured, you can hide as a bonus action even if you're being directly observed. It's very rare that you can have a way to get around the ability of where someone's watching you, you can hide from them. This one gives you the ability to do so, and what's really cool about this magic item is it gives you a whole new bonus action utility that you didn't have previously. So if you have any other magic items, Boots of Elvenkind, Cloak of Elvenkind even technically, right? You could have something that boosts your ability to make stealth checks or to hide, and this now gives you the ability to do this as a bonus action. Now, Artificers do have, depending on which one you are, bonus action utility. Again, this could be more useful for some other classes if they were able to get access to it, but you can now hide as a bonus action permanently, even while being observed, as long as you have this magic item. And then again, there are fun ways you can build stuff out to make you become a, like, which I also think could be funny as a really, like, potentially bulky armored artificer. You could be just like a stealth master and be able to hide as a bonus action while still doing full attacks. Like, in theory, move up to somebody, hit them, back away, and then hide even though they're looking at you, which doesn't make any sense, but I love the concept of it. Number 9. The Guardian Emblem. I should have mentioned that the last item, the Nature's Mantle, as well as the Guardian Emblem, both come to us from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. This, again, as an action, you can attach this emblem to a suit of armor or shield, which is easy enough. As an artificer, you typically will have one or both. It has 3 charges. Whenever you or a creature you can see within 30 feet suffers a critical hit while you're wearing the armor or wielding said shield, you can use a reaction to expend 1 charge to turn a critical hit into a normal hit, and it gets all its charges back daily at dawn. This typically is only usable by a cleric or paladin, but it's something that is, at least again, I've said it before, I feel like in my personal headcanon, artificers fill a good utility role in a party. While yes, some of you brought it out in the last video that with a high AC, depending on how you built it, they can very much be a tank. That is true, but I still feel like, even to a degree, I feel like a tank almost fills a utility role in and of itself. I don't typically think that the Artificer is a heavy DPS class, and while they do have healing, I think their better option is to kind of bounce around and touch on each one of the different aspects. So this really goes a long way, but it's also so high up or so low, depending on how you look at it on this list, because of the one D&D playtest and where we stand currently. If they get rid of critical hits, then this item is useless. But until then, it also, don't forget, it can work on, it says, when you or a creature. So it can work if you get critically hit as well, not just against your allies. And 3 uses per long rest is a pretty good deal. Or per day, rather, is a pretty good deal. Number 8. The Lyre of Building also comes to us from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. This one typically gated for a bard, but while you have it, you can cast Mending as an action. For those of you who don't know, if we were to mouse over Mending, Mending typically takes a whole minute to cast. So we have altered Mending down from 1 minute to an action. I do feel like the idea of faster mending and fixing of things fits the Artificer very well thematically. You can also play the Lyre as a reaction when an object or structure you see within 300 feet of you takes damage, causing it to be immune to that instance of damage and any further damage until the start of your next turn. Again, this kind of fortification magic does feel very Artificer in nature, and if that wasn't enough, you can also use the Lyre as an action to cast Fabricate, Move Earth, Pass Wall, or Summon Construct, and that spell can't be cast from it again until the next dawn. So potentially you may have access to some or all of these spells. Again, Pass Wall is a 5th level spell. Summon Construct is 4th. So these are much later on in the Artificer's level before you get access to 4th and 5th level spells. However, the item, while it is rare, it's not, if your DM focuses on rarity, a rare item isn't the hardest to get, obviously. We're only doing up to very rare in this video. But those are all Artificer utility style spells. You could get them from the magic item itself and then have, prepare other spells as part of your daily ritual, or learn. I forget if Artificer's known or prepared, but either way. And again, they're freebies. So even if you did prepare or learn Fabricate as an Artificer, you could still have a once a day freebie use from the Lyre of Building. This one just feels like an Artificer item in general. It's gated behind a lyre, an instrument, therefore it's bard. And I think this is also a legacy item from older editions, which is why they kind of kept it the same. Number 7. The Staff of Dunamancy. This is a very rare magic item that comes to us from Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. And if you know anything about the Critical Role world and the use of Dunamancy magic, this was obviously heavily a part of Campaign 2 of Critical Role. They introduced an entire new school of magic, Dunamancy, which is kind of, I don't want to say probability, but it's like other timeline-based magic, kind of almost multiversal magic. And this is typically only usable by a wizard, but being an Artificer, you're able to get around this. So it has 10 charges and gets a d6 plus 4 back daily at dawn. Has the standard, if you roll a 1 on when you roll the last charge, you could possibly lose it. So usually you just wouldn't do that. And then again, while holding the staff, you can use an action to expend 2 or more of its charges to cast one of the following using your spell save DC and attack bonus. So it doesn't say your wizard spell save and attack bonus. It says your, so it works for you as the artificer. Fortune's Favor for 2 charges, which is it basically gives you advantage, right? When the chosen creature makes an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw before the spell ends, casting time is a minute, but its duration is an hour, non-concentration. It can dismiss the spell on itself to roll an additional d20 and choose which of the d20s to use. Alternatively, when an attack roll is made against the chosen creature, it can dismiss this spell to roll a d20 and choose which of the d20s to use. It says if the original roll had advantage or disadvantage, the creature rolls the additional d20 after. So this basically works like the lucky spell does in the player's handbook, so it gives you an additional roll. Pulse Wave, which is a pretty cool spell. It's almost like a force push or pull. That is in a cone shape that can either move people 15 feet one way on top of dealing force damage. And then also Gravity Sinkhole, which is a 4th level spell where you create a sphere of crushing force at a point that basically everybody makes a con save, and on a fail they take force damage and are pulled towards the center. And then on top of that, you also have New Possibility. If you're holding the staff and fail a saving throw against a spell that targets only you, you can use you can turn your failed save into a successful one once until the next dawn. So that in and of itself is almost nice, because it's not a re-roll. It's a I failed and now I succeed instead, on top of getting you access to 3 spells that you wouldn't normally have access to. And again, they're also freebies that you can cast from the staff. Number 6. The Devotee's Censer. Now, I will say up front, this really only works for the Battlesmith, unless you're a cleric subclass and you manage to get access to proficiency with either flails specifically or martial weapons, as typically artificers only have proficiency with simple weapons. It just doesn't make sense in my head that that's the case, considering they could, in theory, make other weapons, but they still have no concept of using them. I know that just because you can make something doesn't necessarily mean you can utilize it, but in my head, they should also have martial weapon proficiencies right out the gate. Either way, this is, again, comes to us from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It is a rare magic item, typically for the cleric or the paladin, but if you happen to be a battlesmith, artificer, or someone with access to other proficiencies, one, it's a flail that counts as a holy symbol. Again, holy symbol is probably not useful to you as an artificer, but when you would hit somebody with an attack with it, it does an extra d8 radiant damage. So the base d8 of the flail plus a d8 radiant damage. It also has a bonus action that you can use to basically have a cloud of incense pop out of it in a 10-foot radius for a minute, and then any creature within that heals a d4 hit points at the start of each of your turns. So that's 10d4 healing over the course of a minute, and that ability can't be used again until the next dawn. The only downside is it doesn't distinguish friend from foe, so if an enemy is fighting you and they're within 10 feet while this is active, you will also heal the enemy. But consider that you can use this outside of combat and just do it for a 1 minute 10d4 heal to everybody around you, on top of the fact that it can already deal damage. Like I said, I wish it was usable by all artificers rather than just the battlesmith, but even though you can ignore all sorts of qualifications and things for magic items, it still doesn't get you around the fact that you need to have proficiency with the weapon to be able to use it effectively. Number 5. Staff of the Woodlands. This one comes to us from the base rules, or the DMG, and this is typically usable by a druid. Now, I picked this one because it has a lot of, again, really awesome utility options for you that you wouldn't normally have access to as an artificer. First of all, it is a magic quarterstaff, which is a weapon that you can wield and use, as that is a simple weapon that has a +2 to attack and damage rolls on it. So in and of itself, that's pretty cool. It also gives you a +2 bonus to your spell attack rolls, which is a nice benefit. It has a various number of 10 charges, then it has the standard rules for recharge and whatnot. But as an action, you can expend 1 or more charges to cast any of the following spells: Animal Friendship, Awaken, Barkskin, Locate Animal or Plants, Speak with Animals, Speak with Plants, or Wall of Thorns. I don't know if any of those are typically available to the Artificer. I'm going to assume probably not. So that will just expand the versatility of what you can do. It also has the benefit of allowing you to cast Pass Without Trace as much as you want without using any charges. Pass Without Trace is a fantastic spell, one of the greats that's out there, and the fact that you can cast it from the staff constantly for free is amazing. And then it also has, the tree form ability where you can plant it in the ground and then turn it into a tree, and then turn it back again. Again, that's not probably the most useful option for the Artificer. But again, some nice base. Again, it's a good magic weapon. It could be something you hold on to if you don't have a druid in the party, or if the druid's all tuned up on items or what have you. You have the benefit to your spell attack rolls, a lot of great options for spells, and again, free Pass Without Trace whenever you want it. Number 4. The Dwarven Thrower. Now, I feel like people would yell at me if I didn't put this on the list, but unfortunately it falls into the same pitfall as the Devotee Censer, where it is a Warhammer, which is a martial weapon, so unless you're a battlesmith or have some way to gain access to Warhammer proficiency, whether it be through martial weapons or some other way, it won't be useful to you, again, unless you're playing a battlesmith. Typically, this requires attunement by a dwarf. I should also say that this comes to us from the base rules /DMG. And so if you're playing a race that is not a dwarf, then the Dwarven Thrower could be an option that you could use. Again, normally only dwarves would have access to it. It is a +3 weapon, so +3 to hit, +3 to damage. And it has a range of 20-60, 20 short, 60 long. And then again, if you throw it and are doing the ranged, it does an extra D8 damage. If that target is a giant, it does 2d8 instead of an extra 2d8. And then immediately it flies back to your hand. So you can live up your Wolfgar / Thor fantasy of being able to throw a hammer and have it fly back to your hand, which is awesome. Again, it feels like it fits the Artificer throwing a hammer, again, Smith, all that kind of stuff. Especially the Battlesmith, I feel like it fits very well. But again, if you can find a way to get access to it and find one of these hammers, there you go. Number 3. Staff of Healing. This is one of the pinnacle awesome items for anybody who likes to do healing or is looking for healing. Typically only attunable by a bard, cleric, or druid. Your artificer nature gets you around that. I also have a sneaking suspicion that we're the artificer in the base game when the DMG was written, or the basic rules that released this. Artificer may have been on this list at that time. But again, paladin isn't, so who knows? But basically, this has 10 charges. You can expend the charges as an action to cast one of the following spells. Cure Wounds as a first level spell for 1 charge, and then you can cast it 1/1 up to 4th level. Lesser Restoration for 2 charges, or Mass Cure Wounds for 5. So again, whether it's single target healing, disease or condition cleansing, or a nice, AoE heal for you and the party. And it gets a d6 +4 charges back at dawn, has the standard, like, don't roll a 1 if you spend all the charges. But that's a lot. You could basically get a Mass Cure Wounds and a couple other special heals in there as well, without tapping into your limited spell slots, possibly using them for other utility options or flat out damage. And again, like I said, it's just a great item. It also, if you spec in a way that you don't take any healing, but you come across a Staff of Healing, that'd be a great thing to allow you to then cast those spells when you normally wouldn't be able to. I think this really fits, again, my headcanon for where the Artificer fits in the party, and being able to work around it. Like I said, I do feel like it probably would have access to it out the gate if the Artificer was in the original book, or in the original set of the rules. But I don't know. Let me know what you think. Would you? I mean, the Paladin didn't get access to it, so does that mean the Artificer wouldn't either? And do you think when 1D&D officially gets published in 2024, who will have access to be able to cast this then? Number 2. Good old Necklace of Prayer Beads. This is one of my favorite magic items in the game. Again, I typically play clerics or paladins, so this comes, this is a near and dear one to my heart. It also is attunable typically only by clerics, druids, or paladins. Comes to us from the base rules /DMG, and it comes with a D4 +2 magical beads on it, and those beads allow you to do a variety of different things. First of all, a necklace can have up to a variety of different options on it. Each bead contains a spell that you can cast from it as a bonus action using your spell save DC. Now, what's important there is it says it can be cast as a bonus action, which means a variety of different spells that are typically one action to cast have now become a bonus action for you. If you were to take a look at this, Bless is an action, which is a great utility spell. You can now cast it as a bonus action, possibly benefiting yourself with the bonus action, and then making an attack roll after that with an extra d4 to the attack roll. Same thing with Cure Wounds at second level. Again, that's an option for you that normally was an action, now has become a bonus action. Same thing, Lesser Restoration. Greater Restoration is an action, but is now switched to a bonus action. Branding Smite always was a bonus action, so nothing crazy there. Planar Ally is a huge one. Planar Ally typically takes 10 minutes to cast. Casting it via the bead is a bonus action. And then the same kind of thing with Windwalk. Windwalk is... How long is Windwalk to cast? A minute to cast Windwalk. You can now turn that 1 minute Windwalk cast into a bonus action casting. So these are all great spells. They are great utility spells. You also have an access to some things that could do damage, like Branding Smite, or potentially what ally you summon via Planar Ally, and you cut all of the casting times down to a bonus action. Pretty awesome and a great utility item all around. Number 1. The Staff of Power. It pretty much had to be on this list. It comes to us from the base rule / DMG and is typically only attunable by a sorcerer, warlock, or wizard. Obviously, being an artificer, that would let us to break that. And it works in a couple of pretty awesome ways. First of all, it is, again, similar to the Staff of the Woodlands, a +2 quarterstaff, so there's +2 to attack, +2 to damage, and it is a weapon that you can wield. While holding it also gives you a +2 to your AC, so that's a potential way to stack your AC even higher, especially if you're someone like a armorer who already probably has a ridiculously high AC, giving yourself +2 more. It also gives you a +2 to your saving throws, which is huge, and to your spell attack rolls. We could stop right there, and this item would probably be worth it in and of itself, but it goes on to do a lot more. It does have 20 charges and has, again, a variety of different rules that happen on if you spend all the charges. If you roll a 1 when you expend the last charge, it still is a +2 quarterstaff, but everything else is lost. If you roll a 20, it gets back more charges. Or gets back charges, a d8 +2. Then you have Power Strike as an ability here. When you use the staff in melee, you can expend a charge to deal an extra d4 damage, 1d6 force damage to a target. But probably what you'll likely end up using it for, on top of just the base passive bonuses that it provides, are all of the awesome high-level and great damaging spells that it has, right? Cone of Cold, 5th level Fireball, Globe of Invulnerability, Hold Monster, Levitate, 5th level Lightning Bolt, Magic Missile, Ray of Enfeeblement, and Wall of Force. Those are all fantastic spells that do a ton of damage. Also have some of them have utility, things like Levitate, Wall of Force, Hold Monster. And then you don't have to, some of these I don't even think you have access to. Some of these are of higher level spells, like I think Cone of Cold is a 6th level spell, or 5th level spell. Globe of Invulnerability is a 6th level spell, so you definitely wouldn't be able to cast that normally. You have all these awesome abilities here, and then you have the sort of last minute, if things are really dire, Retributive Strike ability, which is you can use an action to break the staff over your knee or against a solid surface, performing a Retributive Strike. The staff is destroyed and basically explodes in a 30-foot radius centered on where the staff was broken. You have a 50% chance to instantly travel to a random plane of existence, avoiding the explosion. If you fail, though, you take force damage equal to 16 times the number of charges the staff has left. Reminder, it has 20 charges when it's all the way full. Every other creature in that area must make a DC 17 dexterity saving throw. It's a 30-foot radius, so everyone within 30 feet must make a DC 17 dex save. On a failure, they take damage based on the distance and how many charges are left. So you can see it here. If they're 10 feet away or closer, they take 8 times the number of charges left in the staff. If they're 11 to 20 feet away, it's 6 times, and 21 to 30 feet away, they take 4 times the number of charges in the staff. Again, if this was a full staff and you were really worried, if they're out as the maximum distance that they can be harmed, it could still be taking 80 points of damage. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, the Staff of Power is a fantastic magic item, and this is a great item, especially in the hands of a sorcerer, warlock, or wizard, but those typically don't have access to a lot of the things that the Artificer has. I can imagine a armor artificer who has like a ridiculous 25 AC or something like that, 23, 24, with all of the different armors and things that they have, stuff they've crafted themselves. And then they also have this Staff of Power, which again, they can use to fight on top of having a shield, because remember, you can wield a quarterstaff in one hand. And then they can also be slinging all these crazy spells while further having the passive bonuses of boosted AC and saving throws. So anyway, folks, that covers my top 10 magic items for artificers that are typically not allowed via, I have to figure a better name for it, from other classes, maybe. So let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Did I miss anything? Was there some items that were super great that I just totally glanced over or didn't even talk about? Have you used any of these magic items with your artificer if they've gotten to that high a level? I'm very curious. Once again, a huge thank you and shout out to my patrons over on Patreon for continuing to support me. I do have plans to really revitalize a lot of the content over there, and I want to apologize for everyone who is a patron and hasn't been getting some of the things that some of the rewards that I should be giving out. So I have a whole plan to rework that, as well as releasing new content with the form of like magic items and stuff like that over on the Patreon. So stay tuned for that. Continuing on the alphabet through the player's handbook, we are now going to move on to barbarians. So next Tuesday, be sure to stay tuned for the top 10 magic items for barbarians. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.